Hello, magical people of the internet. I'm Jen, and welcome to I Never Thought I Would, where we discuss doing things we never thought we would do and the fascinating places that they can lead us to. I have a really exciting guest today. She is an author, she's an executive coach, and a corporate speaker, and I'm so excited that she took the time to come talk to me today. I have Jen Nash. Hi, Jen.
Hi, Jen. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm well. I'm super excited to be here with you. I love the concept of this podcast and share in general. I just think it's so exciting to hear about what people never thought they would do.
Yes, well, I can tell you from my experience, a lot of my greatest opportunities and successes have come from doing things I never thought I would do, and I figured other people would have similar stories, and that's why I wanted to do this, because I get inspired from people's stories, and I hope to keep other people inspired as well. So
I
here
love
we
it.
are. And
Here
so
we
you've lived some like crazy lives in this one life. You've had several. Yeah. And they've all been very different. And I know you've done several things you never thought you would do. So I would
yeah.
love for you to share one of those experiences with us today.
Oh, thank you. It's so kind. Yeah, it's funny when I was thinking about this, I wasn't sure which story to share because I definitely have ended up in very random places doing random things, thinking, wait, how did I end up here? For instance, I went to art school, and when I graduated, I ended up working for a financial newsletter, writing stories about real estate projects that were over $100 million in size. And literally, I had graduated as with a BFA from Parsons School of Design. And I remember thinking, how did that happen? But that I was like, it's not a good enough story. So what was a better story? And I thought, okay, let me tell you a story about how about 6 years ago, I went on vacation to an island off the coast of Florida called Anna Maria Island. And I really just wanted to get away. It's a very, very peaceful, quiet place. Most people that go there are probably like 60 plus. So it's very chill, but it's also very beautiful. I tell people it's like Turks and Caicos or, Bermuda or Bahamas, but in Florida. It's very unexpected to see white, beautiful sand and pale blue water. And on my last day, I was walking around this really cute street where we were staying, and I saw for sale by owner. And a couple weeks later, it was still in my head. So I called the guy and I was like, what are you selling? And over the next couple of months, I ended up buying 2 cottages. And a year later, I also bought his house. And I ended up transforming them into basically like a tiny hotel slash Florida cottage that was 5-star VRBO, Verbo, Airbnb rental. And I was like, oh my gosh, I'm running a hotel basically, because people could come for between 3 and 7 days at a time. And there's, a million things that you have to do when you're running a hotel in terms of safety and, the proper checks with the city and the state and the taxes. And I remember thinking, okay, I definitely never thought I would own a hotel of any kind. And it was a very interesting experience because it was almost like the universe handed it to me on a platter. I kept looking for reasons not to do the deal. And the universe would say, actually, hang on, we'll just get that covered. So for instance, I went to dinner with a local developer who actually wanted the property initially. And I was like, my attitude was, we don't need to compete. There's a house and there's the cottages. I want the cottages, you buy the house. And he lined up a decorator who I ended up like adoring, and she's now a very good friend. Contractors who like did all the work. And he actually backed out of buying the house that had the pool, which enabled me then to do it like a year later. So like it was just like the weirdest thing where I was like, I would never have thought that that would have happened. And the transformation of the cottages is night and day, like very drab, white, beige, not cute, to bright blues, black and white, really cool hipster awning. Everything is very bright. One cottage was called the Sun, one called the Surf. They had super beachy vibes. And I just remember being like, wow, this is unexpected. and my primary world is coaching, but also writing and, strategy. And I've worked for a lot of big companies. So this was completely out of left field, but it's funny because a part of me has always been fascinated with real estate since I took that job out of college, which had nothing to do with actually managing properties, but very random and unexpected. I hope that story like nails it I never thought I would.
Well, yes, but I have so many questions because first of all, when you bought the cottages, did you buy them with the intention to have rental properties or did you? Yeah. Okay. So
Yeah.
you knew there were going to be rentals and then you kind of wanted the house too, because the pool kind of makes it a more attractive location.
Rental.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely.
And everybody likes to have a pool. Yeah.
Yes, of course.
Yeah.
And okay. And then, so how long was it from the time you saw the for sale by owner to actually like putting in an offer? And then how long did it take for the transformation? Because there was a lot of renovation work. And then, like you said, anytime you do a renovation, you got to get permits, you got to go through the city. And then especially if it's going to be like a hotel-ish type place, there's certain health codes, safety codes, all
Yeah.
those things.
Yeah. Well, that's actually an easy question to answer because I was there for American Thanksgiving, which was end of November.
Mhm.
And I called him in December. And the owner actually said to me, this was a lie, as it turns out, that this famous developer was very interested in it. He was just trying to like raise the price.
Of
What
course.
he didn't factor in is the fact I'm a little bit nuts. And I Googled the developer and I called the developer directly. And I was like, hi, I hear you're trying to purchase these cottages and this house on Avenue E. And he was like, what? I was like, aren't you trying to buy it? And he's like, I don't know what you're talking about. I'm on a cruise. I was like, you're on a cruise? Anyway, this guy, if you Google him, he's pretty epic in Anna Maria Island. Sean Coletta has quite the reputation. But he is a pretty serious real estate developer and mover and a shaker for sure. So anyway, I stupidly put the cottages on his radar. So then it was all about, I wanted to do some interesting financial structuring. So this is probably going to get a little heady for some people listening, but I wanted seller financing, which is called, it's called something different in Canada, actually. It's called take back financing or something. But seller financing is where the owner actually is the bank for a percentage of the money.
I totally understand what that is. Yes.
Yeah, exactly. And or all of it.
Mhm.
And I negotiated a great deal, but then Sean was like, "Oh no," because I think the owner wanted he wanted $1 million period for everything. That's what he wanted. He wanted $1 million. And I had negotiated something in the high fours, and then Sean was like, "No, I want that deal." So I ended up paying more because of Sean being
Because
the
you
fool
called
guy. Yeah,
Because you called him.
because I called him. I know, and he negotiated better, but he also was kind of famous. So
Mhm.
whatever he wanted, the seller was like, "Oh, okay."
Yeah.
So the funny thing is I got the cottages under contract probably in January. I mean, it's funny. I actually remember it very well. I was in Vegas doing the negotiation and every day running down to the fax machine because I was on, I think it was, yeah, I was at a conference or something. And then I'd come back up and get it all done and go run back down to the fax machine. And, glad those days are over. Hello, email. And and so I put my deposit down, he signed, and I was locked and loaded. And then the developer never put any earnest money down, never followed through, and just vanished. And so the seller was actually very annoyed because he had to sell the cottages, but he still owned the house. And I was
Mhm.
like, well, that's not my fault. I got you someone to buy that. And just because he walked, it's not my fault. So
Yeah.
I closed, and I know this because there's actually a stamp on the door. I ended up calling the cottages Postcard Cottages. And if you go to Postcard Cottages AMI, you can see them. They're very, very cute. And so AMI stands for Anna Maria Island. So Postcard Cottages AMI. And the whole theme was like a postcard from someplace sunny. So we did like a postmark hand painted onto the front door. And the
Cute.
postmark is, yeah, the postmark was May 16th, which is the day I closed.
Oh, wow.
So the renovation started in May. And interestingly enough, I could not get any of the contractors to sign anything. So everything was done on handshakes, which I have to tell you gave me so much stress. But
Yeah.
yeah, there's a lot of stress there. Yeah, I can honestly say I never thought I would do a $50,000 plus renovation on a handshake. Yeah,
I do
but believe it
that.
or not, it all came together, and I think at the end of the day, I ended up paying like maybe $4,000 more than I expected, which I think is fine. Like at the end of the day, $4,000, we can live with that.
My dad's in construction. $4,000 over budget is nothing when you're doing a renovation, because the other thing is like, I love watching those home improvement shows like the Love It or
Oh
Leave
yeah,
It,
yeah,
and at least 50% of the time, once they get in there, they see that there's other work that
hmm
that becomes a priority because it's safety or whatever. So four
yeah.
grand is like nothing,
I felt really blessed. I did, and so I think I had my first clients in September. So it was not fast. It was definitely not fast. And they did it after hours, they did it weekends. I lived in New York at the time, in Pennsylvania, and I think I went down twice. I just sort of trusted.
Yeah.
And the decorator, whose name is Cindy Ogden, was just literally fantastic. She managed the project, pulled it together. We talked a lot. I, had Pinterest boards for the different things that I wanted, of course. And she just made the whole project go to completion with some semblance of like forward motion. And then once we were up and open in September, then it was a matter of like crossing all the I's, dotting all the T's, like getting the Instagram, getting the website.
Yeah.
And my background for the last 20 years is marketing. So, that part is it's just a matter of doing it, but it's a lot of work. But hey, 4 years later, I guess 5 years later, I mean, the prices in Florida this last year were excellent. And so I sold the baby, sadly. But,
Wow.
I
Mhm.
mean,
It was a great opportunity to sell it.
it was a great opportunity. Yeah. And actually, I mean, Florida keeps going up, but the house is, one house off the beach. It's, like 2 feet above sea level. And I truly do believe global warming is coming.
Yeah.
So there's definitely a part of me that's like, all right, we did well. Let's do something else.
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely. So what do you think was like the biggest, kind of lesson, or like the biggest takeaway from like that whole experience? Because it didn't sound like you were particularly in the market to
No,
buy a little, hotel in
I I
Amelia Island.
I really wasn't. It just kept going in my head. I kept thinking about it, and I was going through a bit of like a tough personal time when I was there, and it just gave me such a sense of calm, and I had such a sense of grounding, and that sense of calm and grounding, I think, really drew me to thinking about the cottages and thinking, what is that? Could I own that? How expensive is it? I would like to own something in that area that's going to give me such a sense of calm. And um, I think if I could give myself advice, I mean, the problem is like, what's the worst that can happen? All your brain does is like cycle the worst things that can happen.
Oh,
You
of
lose all
course.
your money and it's a complete, termite infested hole. But, it passed inspections. And I think it would have been just like, really don't stress. Like, because to your point, like $4,000, whatever, like even if it had been 15, like that's not crushing anybody if you're buying, a $500,000 house, right? So I think I would have just chilled out even more. I mean, it wasn't super stressful, but it was definitely a different kind of thing. Also, I kept thinking, Florida, what am I doing buying in Florida?
Well, I'm impressed with the fact that you went down there only twice. Like I know friends who've, bought a new house and have a renovation going on before they're able to move in. And they literally go every single day. And I'm like, you're going to make yourself crazy. But the fact that you trusted the people that you hired on handshakes, you trusted your designer to oversee everything, like that's
Yeah.
huge.
Cindy is amazing. She's a pro. She's been doing it for 30 plus years. She knows Anna Maria Island backwards and forwards. But it's funny, initially I did not trust. And so I went and I spent, I think, 10 days living in squalor. And
Mhm.
also, they weren't working with any regularity. So I actually realized I was stressing myself out. I'm living in a construction zone that's not pleasant, and nobody's actually coming with any regularity. And I actually can't whip the whip. So the only thing that I have is they need to get paid eventually. So they'll be forward motion.
Yeah.
And so that, like, I probably, yeah, could have stayed less. I mean, but you're right. I was super nervous. So I wanted to check in. But once I realized there was no point, I was like, okay.
And it was also something you had never done before. So of course you're gonna,
Yeah,
be
no, it was the very
nervous and you're
first
gonna want to
renovation.
be
Yeah.
there.
Yeah.
Like anything, when we're unfamiliar, we're just unfamiliar. Wow,
Yeah. And
this
it was the very first renovation that I'd ever done in a different state, and hiring someone. Because I'd done renovations in Pennsylvania, but my ex partner oversaw everything. And so,
Mhm.
like, I trusted him. He was going to do a good job. Somebody, who was in ownership was on site.
Yeah.
This was totally sight unseen.
Oh
Yeah.
my God,
Yeah.
crazy, but
Yeah. It
that's
was,
amazing.
yeah.
And I'm sure that experience like has helped you deal with other situations that could have been stressful, but you didn't make yourself crazy over because you're like, oh no, that worked out. Like, I don't have to make myself nuts about this other thing now.
I think you definitely get a sense of this can't be that bad. I think in life it really boils down to, like, if you're healthy and your family's healthy, like, there's really nothing that's too crushing. Like, yeah, financial issues are very, very stressful, but we're still blessed with our health, right? So
Exactly. The next thing I wanted to ask you about is you have this like really unique position called connector in chief. And this is in addition to the other things I mentioned in the intro that you do. And I don't know what a connector in chief is. And I was hoping you could explain it to me.
I would be delighted to. It's a little bit of a tongue-in-cheek title, but I pride myself on really building out my network. And your network is, of course, all your connections.
Mhm.
And I think the pandemic has really put a fine point on the notion that our connections, our little pods, are so important to our sense of well-being, our health, mental and physical. And so I really wanted to lean into the whole idea of being a connector in chief. I am always introducing people to somebody who will facilitate whatever they're trying to do, or connect to people who are aligned in terms of what they're trying to achieve. And I love it when other people show up in our lives and do the same thing for me. Like, it's the best. And having just written a book called The Big Power of Tiny Connections, and the subtitle is, how small interactions spark awesome outcomes. It's really all about how these small little moments can have such big, big little shock waves that ripple through our lives. The same way, you know, connections in our lives create shock waves, hopefully in our hearts, in our dreams,
Mhm.
and our workplaces, and so that's why I was like connector in chief. I love that title.
So did you coin that title?
I don't think I did. I believe I actually think I found someone else that has it. So I think I thought I thought it up, but I believe other people have gotten to the same place with the same sort of thought process. But
Yeah.
I coined it for myself.
Okay, well, that works too. Okay, so yes, you're right. In terms of like, especially during this pandemic, like it's, punctuated how important our connections are. And we all at the beginning of the lockdown felt so isolated, and Zoom blew up, and all of our Zoom parties and
Yeah.
cocktail hours and things like
Yeah.
that. So what is one of the main things that like drives you to connect somebody with somebody else? Like,
Oh, I just love the idea that like there's a surprise inside of everyone's sort of like life box,
yeah,
right? And if you put two people together and it becomes like magic ingredients, like who doesn't love that? It's sort of um I mean, it's funny. The book was written in a sort of roundabout way. I was in a writers group and they asked us, what is your magic talent? Like, what do you aspire? Like, what are you
mhm,
bringing to the earth that nobody else brings? And I was like, I want to be Mary Poppins. Like, I think my alter ego is Mary Poppins. And the thing that I love the most about Mary Poppins is she reaches into this tiny little purse and pulls out like giant umbrellas and like coat stands and like whatever you randomly need, she has. And I
yeah.
think that the magic of tiny connections and being able to introduce people is sort of like that magical moment where you could just say, "Oh, you need someone that's going to align with you this way? I have it." And like offer it up. And I mean, it costs you nothing to create that sort of magical connection.
I
Um,
I absolutely love this because I am in a field that is quite competitive, like in the acting world and in the
mhm.
filmmaking world.
Yeah.
Well, everything is competitive in life, but we don't need to get into that. But it's so interesting how people can get very protective of their
Mhm.
connections. Like, yeah, I don't want to say
Yeah.
stingy, but they're very protective of their connections.
Yeah.
And it's funny because you would think like the more successful somebody is, the more they would relax about those connections. And it's actually the
The
opposite.
opposite.
It's the,
Yeah.
the people who are kind of in the struggle, like they just kind of want to, they're happier to help and happier to, oh yeah,
Mhm.
call this friend, or this person would be great for that. Or we all fuel each other's juices and imaginations. And why wouldn't it be the same outside of the creative world? So I think what you're doing is just so incredible. And
No, thank you.
I would like you to tell us a little more about the book. So you were in this writing group. That's where you kind of got the inspiration, because that's your
Yep.
superpower. You're Mary Poppins.
Exactly. Yeah.
And
And then they were like, well, what does that look like in life? And I was like, connection. But I was also um I was going through a really hard time in my relationship. And then through that, I realized how important connection was and being aligned and having relational dynamics with someone who's really showing up and hearing and listening and giving and taking. I was like, what am I missing? Connection. And it's funny that you mentioned sharing resources. I literally have a whole section on sharing resources. Share your friends, share your house when you're out of town, share what you do, like, you probably have done voiceovers for friends. Now, I mean, I draw the line, like, I do think when you're an artist, people take advantage and I think you should be paid for that. But, could you give them a little discount? Sure. But they should still offer to pay. But like, I agree with you. My wealthier friends, of course, never offer their extra guest bedroom, which I'm always so surprised by, because the regular people are like, oh, you need a place to stay, by all means. And our resources are so, it's such a gift. And it's funny because like just to put a fine point on it, I drive traffic from the book to my website, which is straightforward, jennash.com, and I'm like, get more free resources on my site, because again, it's just trying to like support the connection. And of course, I would love them to like sign up and be part of my newsletters and stuff, but at the same time, they don't have to. It's fine. Take the resources, because at the end of the day, I would rather have people leaning into how they connect. because that's really powerful. I think so anyway. And it makes your connections more meaningful.
Yes, and also everything is energy, and there's an energetic,
Mm-hmm.
there's a different energetic vibration for, being open and being generous and sharing, as opposed to like, no, this is mine. You know what I mean? It's like,
Oh yeah.
we all know there was that kid who never wanted to share their toys. We didn't want to go to their house and play with them, Like,
It's true.
you
It's true.
know?
And I mean, and I think we also all have those moments, but I do think when you come from a place of abundance, especially with contacts, like I think it's interesting because I can see how an actor would be like, well, I'm not going to give you my producer's number, because when you give that number out and they give that number out, then the producer's overwhelmed. But at the same time, like everybody's different, right? It's like handing someone a bag of very different M&Ms where each one's got a different flavor. Or I guess jelly beans would be a better metaphor, but the producer doesn't need the same type of jelly beans all the time. Sometimes he wants a popcorn jelly bean and sometimes he wants a root beer jelly bean.
Yeah, exactly. And that's the thing, like every project is different. There's so much diversity of thought, diversity of ideas, diversity of genres, of
Yep.
mediums now, that there's enough to go around for everybody. And I love this idea. I love this concept. And it's just such an inspiration. And it's what we need right now, because also I think with the pandemic, especially towards the beginning, because a lot of people were acting out of, kind of fear,
Mm-hmm.
People were stocking up on things, and, and there weren't enough resources
Yeah.
to go
Oh
around.
yeah.
And
Yeah.
people were,
the toilet paper jokes will live on forever.
yeah, the toilet paper, but also like, not just that, like initially we got to the point where we were getting very closed off, because we didn't want to be too close to somebody, because God forbid, we catch COVID from them. And I felt myself shutting down in a way. And it was hard to kind of break out of that for the first few months of this pandemic. And I don't know if you experienced that at all.
Are you kidding? I'm like half the social person I used to be, and it doesn't bother me. Like we've all just sort of like, oh, we're just at home again.
And it's so amazing that like during a pandemic, you're writing about connection, because that's like the thing people are like craving the most. So congratulations. Oh, it's like brand new. It's still hot.
Yes, it's very brand new. I'm very excited. Yeah. And I think, it's a very easy to flip through book. It's like the intro has a lot of interesting data around how science supports the connection is one of the literally smartest things you can do, mind, body, and soul. Kids that are not touched die. People who are lonely experience symptoms very akin to being morbidly obese or smoking a pack of cigarettes a day. I mean, the unhealthy aspects of loneliness are just off the charts. And so the book goes through the sort of the examination of why this is critical, but then I talk about how can tiny connections help you get a better job? How can tiny connections help you make more money? Because these two things are different. How can they help make you a better person, get you invited to more parties, maybe get you laid? Like it's all the things that you sort of want, like spread out. And then each chapter has really fun stories. So I interviewed a lot of people and tried to find stories that really align with whatever I'm talking about. So new jobs, like how people's connection helped them ladder up, how being kind to a stranger ends up getting, one woman flown home from London, or another woman, she's kind to a stranger and 15 years later, she finds out because they're now friends that they're actually related. Like it's crazy. Yeah, it's super weird. Super weird. And
to share like a story like that about your own life, where like you had a tiny connection that really kind of pivoted something for you?
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, in the chapter, it's funny. It's my stepkid actually highlighted this. She goes, "You do realize we're in the chapter about getting laid?" Because I mentioned my stepkids in that chapter, and I was like, "Oh," but it's about flirtation and being open and seeing where
Mhm.
things go. It's really not about getting laid. Um, but yeah, so I moved to Pennsylvania and changed my life very radically, and I very, very randomly was like pushing my bike down a highway because it had a flat tire. I, believe it or not, was dressed head to toe in white, even had like white shoes on. Like, this is just what I was wearing that day. And I found a garage that was still open. And the guy working there looked up, and because the sun was streaming behind me, he was like, "An angel." And I was like, "Hi, do you have air?" And he was like, "Oh, she's not so bright, this angel." He's like, "I sell tires." And I'd literally had a car for maybe a month. I literally thought car tires came inflated. I'm a New Yorker. We don't have cars, right? So I was like, "That's nice. Do you have air?" Because I was thinking, oh, he's not very bright. So the two of us both thought the other wasn't very bright. And he like got details about where I worked and stuff. And fast forward, he like invited me out. And then I ended up uh, partnering with him for like 13 years and building up a little real estate empire in Pennsylvania. So it was very like, stay open. You never know where something's going to go. Like
And a flat
literally,
tire.
yeah, like literally 7 months after I met him, I bought my first property and he helped me renovate it. Yeah. So
Wow.
yeah, you never know.
You never know. Exactly. And that's also, we should be kind to everybody anyways, because I don't
Yes.
think there's ever a reason not to be kind.
No,
But,
no.
but you never know. You never know who you're going to meet, and you never know where that person's going to end up. Like I,
Yeah.
I always find it so incredible to hear about where people are now. And it's like, oh my God, like that person, I never would have imagined that they would do that. But you know what? A lot of us end up going places and achieving things we never thought we would imagine. How could anybody else think it for us?
I agree. I agree completely, which is, I mean, the other mindset that I really encourage in the book is always think about how can I help you?
Exactly.
When people approach every interaction from how can I help them,
Mhm.
they really can make a shift.
Oh my God, this has been such a fascinating conversation. I'm so grateful that you took the time to come chat with me today, Jen.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. I really appreciated getting to know you a little bit better, Jen, and I'm
Yes.
really excited about the mission and your entire podcast.
Oh,
Thank
thank
you.
you. And can you please tell everybody where they can find you, where they can find your book, social media? I'll, of course, include the links below, but just let everybody know.
Oh, sure. Thank you. You can find the book at Chapters, Barnes and Noble, Amazon. Ask for a small bookstore to get it in. But it's The Big Power of Tiny Connections by Jen Nash. And if you go to jennash.com, that's JENNASH.com, you can also buy it there.
Fabulous. Well, I am so excited about this connection that we just made today. And it was such a treat to chat with you. Thank you again. And thank you all out there in the interweb for taking the time to tune in. I would like to challenge you to do something you never thought you would do. Please let us know what it is in the comments and where it leads you. Have a beautiful day.